Hi, I'm John. This is my show, Orange is the New Black Cards. So this is the video off the page of Sports Cards Anonymous, Dakota. Just to mention, Dakota, just so you know, you got me blocked on your page. I think I had made some jokes and stuff where I involved your wife and stuff, and I'm not going to say I'm sorry because they're just jokes and shit, right? And the jokes of what I say, it's like I'm not offending your wife, I'm making jokes about you. I'm making jokes about people like you in the sports cards community that have to spend all this time in the sports card community in your private little room. And see, there's in the movie or the TV show 2.5 Men, and Alan was married to his wife, and then his wife marries, so it's Judith. Judith marries Herb, and so Herb has a room with a train set in it, because there's this really funny joke, and I've looked for it because I wanted to use it in a video, but I was never been able to find it. And so then Alan comes over to which is his old house, is Judith's house. 2.5 Men is really funny, right? So Alan comes over to the house, and he's seeing the train set room that Herb has, right? And Alan is complaining to Judith, and Alan says, "I always wanted to turn that room into like a game room and get a pool table or something like that, you know?" And then he tells Judith, "You'd never let me do it." And then Judith says, "Well, that's because Herb can play with his trains alone," right? So that's the joke, and what I talk about with people that have wives and these people in the sports card community, and you're in here in this room, it's like, yeah, your wife lets you play with your sports cards because you can play with your sports cards alone and shit, right? But if you were there trying to have a pool room and having guys over to play pool with you and having drinking, and you guys are all drinking it up, having a good time, your wife would shut that down. So I'm not gonna say apologize for making that kind of joke, because that's the kind of joke of what I'm trying to relate to you. It's like, yeah, you can play sports cards in your room here. You can play YouTube creator and sports card person because your wife will allow you to do that. If you were having a pool room and drinking it up with your buddies and shit, your wife would not allow that to happen. And that's the kind of joke of what I'm trying to make. And because I made some jokes like that, you blocked me. And that's why I fucking make rude jokes about you, because I say, well, inside you got the soul of a bitch because you're being controlled by a fucking bitch. So fuck you, dude. And so it's like, dude, sorry. I fucking talk aggressive and I fucking tell the truth. And sometimes I use derogatory words and shit and meaning. And it's like, I personally, I kind of like you, Dakota. I think you're a cool guy. I wouldn't really make videos and I wouldn't try and relate fucking things to you if I didn't actually kind of like you. There are things about you that I do like and shit, right? Some of your videos, actually, you've been making some funny videos recently. You've been trying to joke and make some bring some comedy into your sports card collecting and stuff, and talking about the community. That stuff I think is cool. And I actually do really like your your Friday night. And I hate alcoholics, just so you know. I do not like people who drink and shit. But I would not say you need to make alcohol illegal, because there are people that do drink that do it the right way, and there's a good need for it. I understand that people that when you work and you need to come home and you need to unwind a little bit and you can drink a little bit, if it's like, yeah, if you can do it properly and not become a total fucking alcoholic and shit, right, then I got no problem with that shit, right? But generally most people become alcoholics and shit, and they're freaking belligerent, total fucking losers and shit, right? I don't really like alcohol and shit, right? But that's not to say that I would make it illegal and shit, and that's not to say that there aren't people out there that use alcohol properly and shit, right? Which maybe that's what you do and shit, right? So, but I'm saying, even on your Friday night live show and stuff that you do, and you're drinking and stuff, and sometimes you end up kind of at the end, you're a little bit tipsy and shit, it doesn't really bother me and shit. You know, I think it's kind of funny, and sometimes you might get mad at people. I don't like when people are like, "This is my live stream, you don't like it, get the fuck out of here." I don't like kind of when you start bullying the people around, thinking you got the power that, "This is my life, this is my page." There's a little bit of that kind of bugs me and shit, but whatever, it doesn't really bother me. But I do actually like when you have I don't really like Neo at all. I really, his platform of what he does on his page doesn't really interest me. I really don't like Neo, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not trying to totally discredit everybody as all, but I really like Flippin' Steve, okay? So when Flippin' Steve and Neo are on your show, Sports Card Dakota, Dakota, so sometimes I do that. It's like, I'm calling you one thing, but in the middle of a sentence, I'm thinking of something else, so it kind of blends together, and I make little mistakes. But I like making mistakes and shit, right? Because it shows I'm not here reading off a script, and it's like I'm not in a movie studio and shit, and doing everything properly, and everything's properly edited. I just come at it. Boom. It's like, this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to make one video. I'm going to come at it. I'm going to fucking take my shot, shoot it as fast as I can and shit, right? And it's like, you should appreciate the fact that even I bring your name up in a conversation, right? Even if I don't have a lot of viewers and shit, right? That's not the point. I'd give you respect just by fucking talking about you, period, and shit, right? That should be enough and shit, right? And it's like, you gotta be able to let some of the jokes wash off your back and shit, right? Off that hairy-ass back and shit. So here, okay, so now it's like, what is it? It's like, okay, what was I making this video about anyways and shit? Because I go off track and shit a lot of times and shit, right? But, oh well. That's the way it's going to be. But no, I remember how with this. So I have a bunch of videos here set up and shit, right? So let's get through this a little bit. So, oh yeah, I don't know if I actually clarified it, but I was saying I do like your Friday night shows, and like when Neo and Steve's on there and you guys together, I like the conversation that occurs. I think it's a really good sports conversation. It's a really good collectibles conversation. I do like that and shit, right? And even if you're just there talking alone, you really have a lot of knowledge. See, it's like, I'll talk bad about people, but I'll also come back and tell you, you got a lot of knowledge about like football specifically. I know football, I believe, is your favorite sport and shit, right? So, and you also got a lot of knowledge about cards, football cards, and I do enjoy that. You know, that's why I do come around your show, because actually some of the stuff you do, I do enjoy. So, last night in the live stream, you guys were having this conversation about vintage football, right? And so Flippin' Steve and Neo were not so high on vintage football. They can't see it. They can't see how it's ever going to get up to the point of what like vintage baseball is going to be. And it's like, yeah, I understand the points and stuff, but just as far as like card collecting and stuff, it's like, well, vintage there's always going to be a time when people start going back to vintage, because it's the vintage stuff. It's the stuff that once you're a fan of that sport, and you're a fan of card collecting, it's inevitable that there's going to be a movement towards vintage cards. Okay? When is that actually going to occur? How it's going to occur? Those are, different conversations, how it actually happens and stuff. But I would say, yeah, vintage football, because the announcers and stuff, and in the local, when you're in a local team, the local team will always bring up those old names of those people and stuff, right? So those names will exist in like the folklore of football history and stuff. The people, even the young kids who are not being taught it by their parents and their grandparents, just by watching the games and becoming a sports fan, those names start to come up, which sparks your interest. Once those names start coming up and you hear that these are the names that people are talking about, well, then those are the card collector people that are fans. They're going to gravitate back towards those cards and stuff. So the football market, and like what Dakota was talking about, how football is the biggest sport and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it is the biggest sport. But it is a violent sport and stuff too. And it's one of those things that's like, we don't know how the future is going to play out and stuff. And with football, because it takes so much, like with the kids, you need all the pads and the helmets, and it's such a violent sport. Like, football's the best one. I love football. I'm all about football now and stuff. Because I was really into basketball. Like when I was young, it was baseball. The gravitated towards basketball would have been my favorite sport, but kind of underlining that was football was like the one that I really liked and stuff. But you're dealing with just one game a week and stuff. And so when I was younger and stuff, and I had the time to put into the sports, then I would have liked basketball because it's more like every night and stuff. You're getting games. But now that I'm older and I just don't, and when I don't have the time to watch as much sports and stuff, football is the one that's like, it's the one, because I don't have to, it's like all I have to do is make the one day Sunday for all day, and then you try and catch the Thursday night, but if not, you can skip the Thursday night game, but you always watch the Monday night game, So you got all day Sunday, the Sunday night game, the Monday night game, those are like the must-watch things and stuff. Sometimes the Thursday, but I can let that slide and shit. That doesn't really bother me and shit anyway. So, but yeah, football is the sport now that's like, that's the one. It's the one. I like football the most and stuff. It's the best sport to be able to watch and participate in it, because you don't have to put as much time into it and shit. So it's like, and it's the best sport. It's the best game and shit. I freaking love football. I'm all about football and shit, right? So I see that people will go back to these vintage cards and stuff. And so on this Sid Luckman, it's like one of these things is like, I can't tell you that I really remember anybody bringing up Sid Luckman, because I'm not from Chicago and stuff, right? So it's like, I don't know if I've ever heard Sid Luckman. I don't know exactly. But I used to work at the casino in Vegas and shit, and in the sports book, and one of the guys that would hang out in my sports book, he was an old freaking like gangster from Chicago and shit, right? He always wore a Chicago Bears jacket, right? And he would always talk about a lot of Chicago things in sports. He was really into sports, and he constantly would be saying, Sid Luckman, Sid Luckman. I heard him, I can't even tell you how many times I heard this guy mention the name Sid Luckman. So like Sid Luckman, I didn't really know exactly who he was, but I know that this dude from Chicago, he constantly would mention Sid Luckman's name. Sid Luckman, like a lot of shit, right? So I just wanted to mention to you one thing about Sid Luckman and how his name is out there, and people from Chicago who are from that era, he must have been good. There must have been something about him, because this guy always talked about Sid Luckman so many times, right? So right there, it would make me interested in the card too and shit, right? And I'm sure that people from Chicago, and like when they're watching Bears games, I'm sure that they're constantly, like you hear him, Sid Luckman, I'm sure his name is spoken quite frequently, like in a city like Chicago and stuff, right? So it's like, yeah, his name is out there. It might not be out there to people that are basketball fans, but if you're a football fan, especially if you're a Bears fan, you're going to be hearing the name Sid Luckman, and people that are the old people, they talk about like Sid Luckman and shit, right? So that's what I'm saying, is like, what these cards that you got, I loved those cards. They're beautiful. A great investment, because you're not going to lose money. You get all the enjoyment of having the cards, and you know you're not going to lose money on these cards. So I think that they're a great investment, and over time, of course, they're going to appreciate in time, and you never know what's going to happen in society where all of a sudden, boom, there will be a time where these cards hit a jump, but you might have to wait 10 years and shit. It's like one of those things. This is just money in the bank, but it's money in the bank that you get to enjoy, that's pretty and shit, right? So, I mean, I think it's a great investment. As long as you're willing to sit on the cards for 10 years, maybe 20 years, as long as you're waiting to see on them, you will get a good return on your investment with these cards. They're a good investment. They're good for enjoyment shit. I really like the cards and shit. So I just wanted to mention that with Sid Luckman. And then, let's see here. Okay, so you're Jim Thorpe. Okay, so the Jim Thorpe one is, I'm going to show you a couple different, but yeah, these are great cards. The cards you got here are freaking, I love them. And now Jim Thorpe is, I'm going to show you here because, okay, so this is Jim Thorpe. He had a movie. There was a movie made about him, okay? And so here I'm going to show you a little clip. We'll show you a little bit of this thing from the Jim Thorpe movie. And this is what I'm going to say about Jim Thorpe, is why I'm showing you this movie. Well, I'm going to show you another reason why. But, Jim Thorpe is the kind of person that they can make another movie about him. They can make a modern movie about him, and and all of a sudden he becomes this super huge famous icon to the kids of today. And this is what they do. They like to put these images, they like to make these kind of stories so that they can keep these stories alive in American culture and stuff, right? And this is the kind of thing, is like, now Jim Thorpe will be all refreshed and in the modern conversation with the young people. They'll be talking about Jim Thorpe, and then they'll be talking about him more on ESPN and shit, right? So it's like, it's just inevitable that something like this probably will occur. And like I said, it's like, when you can see that it already has happened in history, that's a good likely chance that it'll probably happen again and stuff, right? Because that's the kind of things they do in Hollywood and stuff, right? So this is Jim Thorpe movie.
Athlete of all time, an Oklahoma Indian lad whose untamed spirit gave wings to his feet and carried him to immortality. Here in a mighty cavalcade of sport are all the giants who faced this champion among champions, each test adding new honors to his ever-growing fame. Here is the thrilling panorama of the Olympic Games, the nation's praise for its returning hero, and behind the glory and glamour, colorful days at Carlisle University, where he first met Pop Warner, the famous coach who molded Jim's athletic career. Here, too, at Carlisle, he met the girl whose love was to be an inspiration in the arena of life.
I think I'm in love with you. I can't be sure because I've never been in love before, but, well, I thought you ought to know.
It's Bert Lancaster as Jim Thorpe, the nation's all-American pride. Charles Bickford as Pop Warner. Phyllis Thaxter, Steve Cochran.
And the object of this game is to take this leather skin and try to run past Mr. Denny and me.
Working, sweating, training to go to the Olympics. For what?
This is going to be the toughest football game you've ever played. They have one of the greatest breakaway runners in the country, Tom Ashenbrunner, All-American for 2 years. We've got an All-American, too.
You know, so Jim Thorpe, All-American, America's like greatest athlete and shit, right? That's the kind of person that Hollywood can make a movie about, make a modern movie about him, and it'd be really interesting and shit, right? And so, Jim Thorpe, this one I'm going to show you a couple other things. So, Jim Thorpe was played by Bert Lancaster, right? So, you know, because of Flippin' Steve specifically collecting all this other music cards and old Hollywood memorabilia card, I did pick up a couple Hollywood actor cards and shit, right? So let me show you here. So I got this Bert Lancaster card. This is 1957 hit stars. Bert Lancaster. It's Topps. It's a Topps card. So it's a really good card. This one too on the grade. See, it's a mint 8 OC, and so when you see like the centering on it, see the left to right centering is not bad at all, but the top to bottom. The bottom has just a little piece there. So when I bought this, so see Bert Lancaster, that's a nice looking card. When you see it's 1957 Topps and shit, Bert Lancaster. So like there's a couple because I really like Bert Lancaster and shit. I think he's one of the great actors of all time and stuff, Americana. So I really like Bert Lancaster. When I got that card, it was a funny little story because there was 2 8s. And there was like one, I think, for like 135, and the other one was 150. And the one had the OC, and I would definitely not buy the card that was the OC. But it was like one of those cards. I was up late at night, and I was smoking weed all day. I was smoking weed at that time last year, and so I was, so I'm high, I'm sleepy, and I'm stoned, and my eyes, I wear glasses when I have to watch a computer screen and stuff like that. I have to wear glasses and stuff. I can't see. So somehow I made a mistake, and I bought the OC one, but it's actually not bad. I'm still fine with it. I'm totally fine with the card. The card's still beautiful and shit, right? It's just a little bit off center, top to bottom. It's not that bad. The card's still a really nice card, right? But I hate that it says that OC on it. I hate that. I fucking hate that it says that on the thing. But it's not bad because I do like the card so much and shit, right? It's just a funny little story and shit, right? So I bought that one, and I also bought a Debbie Reynolds. I'm going to show you that here in a second. But Bert Lancaster is one of the great stars in Hollywood history and shit. And so he also, just if you people don't know, Bert Lancaster played this role also in the movie Field of Dreams. He played this role.
What do we got here?
She fell.
This child's choking to death.
You're up. Hold it steady now. Hot dog. Stuck in her throat. Oh, she'll be all right. She'll be turning handsprings before you know it.
Thank you, Doc.
No, son. Thank you.
So that's Burt Lancaster. He played the Doc Graham character in the Field of Dreams. So he's also like, so he's, you know, connected to sports and shit too. The Bert Lancaster and stuff. You see him there older and stuff. He was such a good actor and shit. He's a true like American, movie legend and shit. Bert Lancaster is huge freaking, and so it's one of the things is that when you get into like classic cinema. And so, like, if you get into classic cinema, you start watching the classic films, you're gonna find out who Burt Lancaster is. He's huge and shit, right? And so, you're gonna find out who Burt Lancaster is. And that's one of the ways it's like, that's how I saw that Jim Thorpe movie and shit, because I was watching Burt Lancaster movies and shit, right? But then also, he's in Field of Dreams, so he's got these iconic roles and shit, right? So Burt Lancaster is, he's a good one. Like I said, I love that Burt Lancaster card I got and shit, right? So there's reasons why I like it. And how it transitions, too. It also crosses into sports and shit with, you know, with his movies and stuff. It's really interesting and shit, right? So then I'm gonna show you also, so I also got this Debbie Reynolds card. So this is the same thing from that 1957 Hit Stars, Debbie Reynolds. This is a really cool set. If you go look up Topps 1957 Hit Stars, this is a really good set if you want to get some classic like Hollywood cards and stuff. So I really like this one with Debbie Reynolds. She got that really beautiful blue dress on and stuff. This is also an 8. But the card's like, it's really nice. It's really, you know, those old cards, when you get an 8, that's a really high grade on these old cards. That card is like clean. Okay, so Debbie Reynolds, right off of the bat, if you people don't know who she is, I'm going to show you a couple things here about her. Okay, so right off the bat, this movie is the movie Singin' in the Rain. So that's what I'm talking about, like classic Hollywood cinema. One of the movies, when you start watching like classic movies and stuff, you're definitely going to come across Singin' in the Rain and shit, right? So that's Gene Kelly is the one guy, and there's Debbie Reynolds, that, you know, the two big actors in this and stuff. This would be one of the movies that, like, is considered probably, like, top 50 movies of all time and shit, right? So, I mean, it could probably more like top 10 and shit. Singin' in the Rain is going to be, like, one of the big ones of, like, classic Hollywood cinema and shit. Singin' in the Rain is going to be one of the big ones. But Debbie Reynolds, and when you hear her story, she's got a really interesting story. There's a lot to it. But one of the things, if you people don't know, Debbie Reynolds is the mother of Carrie Fisher, who played Princess Leia in Star Wars. Okay, so there's also, like, not only does she have her family lineage of what she is and stuff, right? Her Hollywood history, but her family lineage is, she's also the mother of Carrie Fisher, you know, so that's, you know, which is a Princess Leia and shit, right? So you've got a connection to one of the biggest Hollywood characters of all time with Princess Leia. Well, her mother's Debbie Reynolds. So that's what I'm saying. Debbie Reynolds is big and shit, right? Debbie Reynolds is really big. That's why I really like that Debbie Reynolds card I got and stuff, right? So here's just like a little piece from the Singin' in the Rain.
This is my lucky day, March 23rd.
Come on, now, your lucky day's the 24th.
What do you mean the 24th?
It's 1:30 already. It's morning.
Yes, and what a lovely morning. Good morning.
Good morning. We've talked the whole night through.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Yeah, so Debbie Reynolds she's definitely classic Hollywood. She's really good. She's one that you're going to find out too in there. So Debbie Reynolds has, you know, she's got some good movies. That's probably her biggest one. You Sing in the Rain's biggest, but she's also got it. So if I just say the name to you, The Unsinkable Molly Brown, okay? If I say The Unsinkable Molly Brown, if I just say that, most people probably are going to know who this Unsinkable Molly Brown is, because the movie Titanic is one of the biggest movies of all time and shit, right? So the character of the Unsinkable Molly Brown from the Titanic is a very well-known person in history and shit, right? So there was a movie called The Unsinkable Molly Brown, which was played by Debbie Reynolds and shit, right? So this is another reason why Debbie Reynolds is really cool and shit, right? So this is a little clip from The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Belly up to the bar, boys. Better loosen your belts. Only drink when you're all alone or with somebody else. Belly up to the bar, boys. Better have a few more. I never whirl with a three-toed girl or a discontented whore.
Those old movies are really funny and shit. They're really good. Okay, but Debbie Reynolds also has something else. And this is the thing where I talk about like with the sports car community and the collectibles community. You should respect Debbie Reynolds because Debbie Reynolds is one of these first collectors of Hollywood memorabilia. Like there was in the old days, because I've heard about this stuff, but I'm not sure. I think it was the MGM. There was one of the major Hollywood studios a long time ago. They had an auction. And they auctioned off all the memorabilia from the clothes, the outfits and stuff, right? It's a famous thing. I don't know exactly, but I know it occurred and stuff, right? And I think it was MGM. It was one of the big ones. They had this, like the MGM auction. People that are really into the stuff, they would know exactly what this is, right? So they auctioned off a lot of stuff. So one of the big purchasers of that auction was Debbie Reynolds. She bought a lot of these outfits. So she's also a person, when you want to talk about collectibles history and stuff and being in collectibles, Debbie Reynolds is somebody to be respected in the collectibles community and shit, right? So this is here talking about some of her collectibles and shit. I guess so Debbie Reynolds, she used to have a casino in Vegas, but that's back then I didn't know who Debbie Reynolds was. So I didn't go in because it was just off of the strip. It was like in North Vegas and it was just off the strip. So I never went into her casino. And I really regret it now because now I know that in her casino, she would have had all this Hollywood memorabilia stuff in there. It would have been a really cool casino to go visit and to go see the memorabilia, but I never went and saw it and stuff. So that's one of those things I missed out on and shit, right? But so this Debbie Reynolds, she's talking about that her stuff now is that she wanted her collection to be in a museum. And like I said, she had her casino and stuff, but there's a time now, you see she's older in her life and now she's going to sell it. She's going to put it up for auction. This is her talking about some of her stuff.
This is Julie Andrews' Sound of Music. You know Sound of Music? And we have her other dresses too. I chased Julie down at the airport to get her to sign this guitar. Because it wasn't signed, of course. I just had the guitar. But she signed.
So just that right there is hilarious. It's like, okay, here's Debbie Reynolds chasing down Julie Andrews in the airport. The story here, you know? She's got the guitar from Sound of Music. Julie, hey, can you sign this guitar for me? I mean, that's why it's like the stories that these people have and that they can tell. There's just some amazing stories. So Debbie Reynolds is like, I just have a lot of respect for Debbie Reynolds and shit, right? You'll listen to a little bit more of this.
Signed it for me, right there. That's Julie Andrews. Yes, it's very emotional because it's a wonderful collection and I've worked very hard to collect it for 45 years. And I would like it to stay together for a museum, but it's not meant to be, so now we'll have an auction on the 18th, Saturday. This is Audrey Hepburn. You all know Audrey Hepburn. And and her hat. A beautiful hat.
So I was just just showing you Debbie Reynolds, just show you that like she said, she was collecting all that stuff for 45 years. So it's one of these things that Debbie Reynolds is like, not only is she a big movie star, and she's also the mother of one of the biggest movie stars, but she's also huge in the collectibles community and shit, right? So as I say, it's like, so this is my Debbie Reynolds. So these are the two cards that I had bought I bought that Bert Lancaster and the Debbie Reynolds. Yeah, so, and they have a couple different Debbie Reynolds in that series and stuff, but yeah, so those are a couple ones that I bought, and so, you know, they were affordable. You can get those cards, like, those cards are like $150 for, like, the PSA 8s and shit. They're really affordable. They're really cool cards. Like I said, they are printed by Topps, 1957, so they're total vintage and shit, right? So you can pick up some of those cards. Great pictures, great history around the people and shit, right? So those are cool cards that's like, you can just pick them up for your collection. Now, are they ever going to be really valuable and stuff? I don't know, but those are like cards that's like, far as PC cards, I just really like those cards and shit. Like, those are cards that, you know, it's like, I'll die with those cards. I could care less if I probably don't plan on ever selling them and shit. I don't know what they'd have to be worth for me to actually sell them and shit, right? But those are cards, like, if you like Hollywood history and stuff, right? Those are a couple cards that I think, and they transition into, like, other things. Like I said, Bert Lancaster transitions into the sports community. Debbie Reynolds transitions into the collectibles community and stuff. There's a lot of story about these people's life, and, you know, so that's things that makes you feel connected to like the old Hollywood history and Americana and all that stuff. It's just good stories and stuff, right? So I just wanted to make this little video and talk about Dakota's vintage football cards, which I really like. I love those cards he picked up. I thought were freaking beautiful. I thought you scored. I think they're great cards. I think they're great investments over time. At some point, those cards will spike in value, and unless football gets like downgraded as a sport because it's too violent and they don't let the kids play it, and if they start cutting it out of the football programs because it's too expensive of a sport, that's the only problem I could see with football. The only problem I see with football is like revolving around that. But as far as an actual sport goes, it's the best one. Football is the best shit, right? It's great and shit, right? So, and then even if they did get rid of football, you would still have like the collectibles, the old stuff that, you know, would still be really interesting to people. But it's just like you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You never know how history is going to play out and stuff, right? So yeah, I just wanted to make a little video talking crazy stuff and stuff, right? So you guys have a good day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.